You are watching the YouTube uncut version of episode 6 of Live Set Apart. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining my channel. Be sure to subscribe before you leave. I don't want you to miss any uncut podcast episodes or any of the other inspirational content that I post from time to time. Be sure to subscribe. Like and share this video so that you can encourage someone else. And please, most importantly, before you leave or even while you're watching, leave a comment. I want to know what's on your mind. I want to know if you agree or disagree, if you can relate. And most importantly, I want to know if you are encouraged to keep pushing forward. So, in this episode, I am unpacking my interview with Korey Maryland, a talented musician who I met when I was had the opportunity to serve with him at my home church, Word of Faith Family Worship Cathedral in Austell, Georgia. I always put my shout out in there. And we served together, and I just noticed from day one, Korey was just so positive and so encouraging. He was always positive, always optimistic. And even though we're not serving together now, I still notice, like on his social media, that he's still encouraging people to keep pushing forward. And so I just wanted to spread the positivity and the optimism by having him as a guest. I wanted his story to encourage others as well. So enjoy this episode. Like I said, be sure to comment and let me know what's on your mind, and do not leave the channel without subscribing. I was excited about getting the opportunity to talk to Korey because, for one thing, I wanted to know if he was always so positive. I mean, it's good to be an overall positive person, and I try to be positive myself. Now, there was a time when I was not positive, when I was always almost always negative. But thank you for that growth and maturity. Now I can be positive, but it's like this guy every single day about everything. Like, no matter if we have been in rehearsals for hours and hours, he was still so positive and optimistic. And I wanted to know if he was always that way. So we started out talking about his youth. And when he was young, when he was in high school, actually, he came to this place where he figured, there is more to life than just existing. You should be helping other people um to accomplish their goals, or just to be who they are designed to be. Now, this is a high schooler who came to that realization. So, first of all, that shows and proves that he is exceptional. Even in his positivity, he is exceptional. And so, there really is more to life than just existing. And I know sometimes we can get in these places where we feel like myself definitely, we feel like we're just a hamster in a wheel, just running, spinning all the time. And sometimes we can end up in a place where we're just existing. I've mentioned before that I went through a period of stagnation. And so basically during that time, when I wasn't creating, and oh my gosh, it was torturous. But during that time, I was merely just existing. And so sometimes we can get to those places. I've been feeling, I'm back to work full time Monday through Friday, actually in the building. And I've been getting up like, oh God, it's time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts until I can launch my own donut shop. But we can get into this rut where we feel like we're just existing. But and even if it's not a bad place, sometimes just existing for some people is a good space. You got your career going, you're doing everything, doing it up for yourself, but you're just existing in that you're not impacting anyone else. And there is more to life beyond just existing. A colleague gave me a card earlier this year that said, "The difference you make makes all the difference." Such a simple statement, but it's so profound. The difference that you make beyond existing makes a difference. And I know sometimes we can feel like, well, what difference are we even making? Well, let me just share this. I work, there's a parking deck that I park in to get to work. And so even pre-COVID, whenever I would have to park on the second floor of the parking deck, I just hated. I hated to do it, not because I had to go up the stairs, but because there's this door to the stairwell on the parking deck. And so even pre-COVID, I hated opening that door. And it's not like it doesn't have a handle where you just push and go on about your business. It has a physical handle that you have to grab, touch with your hand, and open the door. And so even pre-COVID, I hated touching the handle. It was the grossest thing. And so during the pandemic, when I was going into the office once a week, I was really, COVID. I'm like, I'm definitely not touching that thing with COVID going around. And so I reached out to public safety and I asked them if they could prop the door open because the first floor door is propped open. So why isn't the second floor door propped open? And so I reached out to ask them if they could prop the door open. And I had to ask several times, but finally they got the door propped open permanently. And at that time, it didn't matter because the parking lot was so empty. I was parking on the first floor. I never made it to the second floor. But today, first day of classes, I worked at a college, first day of classes, parking deck was full. First floor was packed. I ended up parking on the second floor. And when I got to the stairwell, guess what? The door was propped open, so I didn't have to touch the handle. And that made me smile. And I was like, yeah, I did that. I know I'm not the only person who hated touching that door handle, but because I said something, they got the door propped open, so nobody has to touch that door handle. And that was a difference that I made, not just for myself, even though it did help me, but I knew that other people were feeling the same way. That's a difference that I made that made all of the difference. And so it's easy for us when we make differences like that, where we can actually see the difference that we make. But a lot of times we don't get to see the difference that we make in other people's lives. But I promise you, if you are living a life of purpose, you are making a difference in somebody's life. There have been several times where people have come to me to say, I just really admire how you did this, or I loved how you did that, or thank you for doing this, or thank you for doing that. When I wasn't trying to do anything, I was just being. And in my being, I was making a difference. And the difference that I was making all of the world. And so I love that card. The difference you make makes all the difference. So the difference that I was making was making all of the difference. And so Korey, even as a high schooler, realized that he was here to make a difference. And so he got together with a group of friends and they got together a group of guys and they made a group. They got a group together and they started making a difference in people's lives. And so I don't want people to underestimate the impact that we have just by being who we were created to be. Korey was just being who he was created to be, which is an encourager. He was created to be an encourager, and he was being that encourager. And he put together a group, which brings us to the first key to keeping forward. And the first key to keep you pushing forward is this: be a better you. So, where did that come from? Well, Korey shared in his interview that the name of his group of the guys that he got together was simply Be a Better You. Well, the name of the group was A Better You. And so, in that group, what those guys did together was they were pushing each other to strive to be better versions of themselves. And that's something that we all should be doing every day. We should be striving to be a better version of ourselves. And just thinking, what can we do better today than yesterday? What can we build better? What value can we add to ourselves? And what difference can we make? Each day, we should be striving to be a better version of ourselves. And so in Korey's group called A Better You, he and his friends got together and they challenged the guys who joined their group, they challenged the members of their group to think about what could they do better. Simple, right? So they thought about what it was that they could do better. And they thought about the goals that they wanted to accomplish. And then as they discussed those things as a group, they held each other accountable and they built each other up. So this is a high schooler doing this. So I know I asked Korey if he was always like that, but if he was doing that in high school, because I wasn't doing that in high school, then basically he pretty much was always like that. But his group, he was saying how his group helped so many young men and they kept it going for years and they continue to hold each other accountable to just being a better them. And by them being in that group together, it was pushing them forward because they had a group encouraging each other and most importantly, holding each other accountable. So I don't know about you, but there have been so many days where I was like so far off the mark. I'm like, what the world was I thinking? I'm talking to Jesus like, Lord, have mercy on me. What is wrong with me, Lord? And I just love that. I love that every day we get a new chance. We get a chance to do something better and to do things right the next day and even within the day. But I love the scripture that says that God's mercies are made new every morning. And sometimes when I wake up, sometimes I go to bed after having a terrible day and I wake up just thanking God that it's a brand new day and I can start all over. And no, you don't have to wait until a brand new day, but there's significance in starting a brand new day over. And I'm just so grateful for the new mercies that we have day after day to be a better us. Now, sometimes being a better you is beyond just, starting a new day off better, but having a better vision of who you are in Christ. Now that makes a huge difference. What if we truly saw ourselves the way that God sees us each and every day, all day, each and every day? What if we saw ourselves the way that God truly sees us? We would be unstoppable. And the enemy knows that. That's why he doesn't want us to see ourselves the way that God sees us. But God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think according to the power that worketh within us. And if we don't recognize the power that's working within us, if we don't see that power the way that God has given it to us and the way that he sees it, then he's going to be limited in what he can do in our lives. So just imagine if you truly envisioned and saw and understood and had a true revelation of that power that works within you that God has given you, you would definitely be unstoppable. So sometimes we have to just change the vision of how we see ourselves and make sure that we are seeing ourselves as Christ sees us. And to do that, we have to charge that power supply, that power that works within us. We have to charge that power supply by getting in the word and learning who God says that we are. Getting in the word and learning who God says that we are. I shared a video about transforming your mind, and I went through a process of a couple of months where I just began to recite a declaration that I wrote that pointed out all of the things that God says that I am. And as I would say those declarations day after day after day, I truly start just transform my mind into seeing who God was saying that I am and who he says that I am. And guess what? He says it about all of us. And so let me tell you, when I caught that revelation, I have been unstoppable. I see myself differently. I'm able to do these podcast videos and release this podcast and the other content that I release and work on the other projects behind the scene because I am unstoppable. I see myself the way God sees me. He has given me the victory, and I'm just walking in it because I've transformed my mind and I have a vision of myself the way that Christ created me, and I see myself the way that he sees me. And so, being a better you could be starting doing things right when you mess up, and then simply it could be just getting a better vision of who you are in Christ. So in Korey's group, they challenged each other, they held each other accountable, and they wrote out goals. And so even as we are becoming these better versions of ourselves, we should have goals as well. And I was recently in a training, a division meeting, where we had a whole segment on writing goals. And so just remember, when you do set those goals for yourself, in order to be the better you, a better version of you, remember to set SMART goals. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but your goals should be SMART. They should be specific. They should be measurable. They should be achievable. They should be realistic and they should be timely. So set those SMART goals to help you get to a better you. And I have my goals written down. I'm working on things physically. I'm working on things mentally with my finances. I am working on some things and I have set my SMART goals so that I can be a better me and so that I can keep pushing forward. So, key number one to keep pushing forward is to be a better you. And key number two is don't give up. Now, I know that seems obvious. Don't give up. If you're continuing to push forward, you can't give up. But sometimes it's just so easy to give up. Even if we don't actually give up, just that feeling, it'll cross your mind. That's the enemy because he wants you to give up, but it'll cross your mind to just give up. And I've seen in so many different illustrations and so many memes, and I've heard in so many different ways, that moment. Sometimes you give up right at the moment where you were about to have your breakthrough. And so we can't give up. I know it gets hard, even for me. Life, there are highs and lows in life. There are peaks and there are valleys in life. And we have to stay encouraged and we have to keep going even when we're in the valley. And so there's so many things that we can experience that takes us to these valley places, these low places, and it can almost be like a roller coaster ride of emotions. And oh my goodness, entrepreneurs, you entrepreneurs out there, I know you've been there and you may still go through that daily, but it's hard when you're an entrepreneur trying to do everything on your own, especially when you're first starting as you're building. It's hard and you have to encourage yourself. I mean, even me with releasing this podcast, there are highs and lows. Like right now, while I'm recording this episode, I am on a high. This is so much fun and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm hoping it's helping you. But after I release the podcast and then I'm pushing it and I'm marketing, it can get a little discouraging when you put your baby out there and hundreds of thousands of people, they aren't receiving it. And you're looking at your engagement levels and you're like, Lord, why am I even doing this? But I mean, you have to stay encouraged. And you know what? I'm encouraged even when I hear from the people who I hear from, when I hear from anybody who has been encouraged by my podcast or by anything else that I've shared, that keeps me going. And so you have to keep yourself going. When I hear a word from God, a reminder from God and his word, that keeps me going. And God is just so good and so faithful that he always sends me just what I need right when I need it. Like even this Sunday's message at my church was right on time and it kept me going. It kept me encouraged and it's helping me to keep pushing forward. So when you know that you are doing something for God and that God led you to do something, you can't give up. You can't give up because a lot of times it won't let you give up. And so, like I said, God is so faithful. He will send you exactly what you need when you need it to keep you going. And I'm sure you notice the same thing. I'm sure you have noticed the same thing. And it's because God is rooting for us. He wants us to win. We already have the victory, but we won't see the victory if we give up. So we have to keep going. We cannot give up. And as we keep going, we could be the one in our continuing to push forward. We could be the one that God is using to encourage someone else to keep moving forward. You never know who's watching you. Someone is always watching, and you never know how your progress and your continuing to push through is encouraging somebody else. So we can't let any kind of discouragement, any kind of setbacks, any fear, any feelings of inadequacy, or anything else paralyze us. We have to keep going. And so Korey said, you never know what's on the other side of all of that. You never know what's on the other side of that fear that might be keeping you from doing something that you've been wanting to do your whole life. You never know what's on the other side of that feeling of inadequacy or feeling like you just cannot do what it is that has been placed on your heart to do. You never know what's on the other side of that. So you have to keep moving forward. If you don't move forward, you won't receive what God has for you. And then the people who He has it for, they won't receive it because you haven't continued to move forward. It took Korey. Korey shared that he didn't graduate, like most of us traditionally go to school and we get our first degree, we get our college degree in 4 years. It took Korey 12 years to finish his bachelor's degree. And just imagine if he had stopped. I mean, if Korey, as he's watching all of these other people, get their degrees and move on and even get advanced degrees and graduate degrees, if he had stopped in the 4 years, I mean, he could have been discouraged, but if he had stopped, he would not be the business leader who he is now. He would not have, he wouldn't be this recent graduate who just received his MBA. And he would not be managing the Fortune 500 company that he's managing now if he hadn't continued to move forward. If he had given up, he would not be the success that he is now. And so I know it sounds cliche, but it's the only way you can do it. The only way you can get through is if you go through. You have to keep going, you have to keep pushing. But what if I'm scared? If you're scared, let me tell you, I've done so many things being scared. I've had to sing. In moments, there have been moments when I've been ministering and like I could feel my bones shaking under my choir robe. Now I know the congregation couldn't see it, but I could feel my bones shaking. And you know what? My stomach, bubble guts, just so nervous and nerves. But when I'm in those moments when I'm nervous like that, I know that I have to lean and depend and trust on God. I'm not operating in my own strength. I have to trust God to get me through those moments. So move, even when you're scared, keep going. There's a friend of mine who's starting a new arena. She's leaping into a new arena and she was sharing how she's nervous about it. And I said, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're nervous because that means you're going to be trusting God all the way to get you through. So even Korey, he described how he's been nervous. He speaks, he's leading a Fortune 500 company and he has to speak and do trainings in front of hundreds of people. And even in his nerves, he gets up and he does what he has to do, but he's praying the whole time, speaking to people. And in his mind, he's praying the whole time for God to get him through. So don't let fear stop you. I'm telling you, be not discouraged, be not afraid, because the Lord is with you. And if you're trusting and depending on him, he will see you through. His strength is made perfect in your weakness, like it says in 2 Corinthians 12:9. So if you're scared, if you get scared, just depend on God. And depending on God, it keeps you humble. So that's a good thing. It keeps you humble, and that's a good thing. So trust God, depend on God. That means if you're trusting God and depending on God, you're not just, you're beyond connected to the vine. You are grasping that vine. You are holding on to that vine for dear life. You are definitely staying connected to the vine. There it goes again. It's a key. You have to stay connected to the vine. So even if you're scared, even if you're nervous, just move forward. Put one foot in front of the other and just trust that God is with you and do not give up. So Korey said something real cute. Well, he probably won't want me to call it cute, but he said something I thought it was so funny. He said, stretch and watch God bless. And I mean, I love that. It could be on a t-shirt. Stretch and watch God bless. So even when you're scared, just stretch. That's how you grow anyway. Stretch, step out, and watch God bless. I mean, I've heard people say, if you're asked to do something, say yes. Just go ahead and say yes and figure out the rest along the way. And I have even adopted that as a motto. I will say yes if it's something that I want to do. I will say yes if it's something that I'm interested in, even if I have no clue. I will say yes and then figure out the rest. Even with this podcast, I was like, yes, podcast. Okay, Lord. Okay. And let me figure out how to do it. So say yes and then figure out the rest. Stretch, and watch God bless. He is with you and he will see you every step of the way. Utilize those natural gifts and talents that God has given you and let him do the rest. Like Korey said, God has gifted us to do a task, an assignment. Let's be bold and do what we have to do. I put that on social media. I thought that was good. That was a good quote. God has gifted us to do a task, an assignment. Let's be bold and do what we have to do. Mhm. He also said, if you don't strive, there are people who won't be able to receive what you have. You have something to impact someone's life. And guess what? My guest, BJ Word, she said the same thing in her interview. So let me tell you, you're hearing this over and over. That's the Lord speaking. That's the Lord confirming that you have something that people want. And if you don't share it, those people won't get it. So it's not even just about you. It's about the people that you are ordained, that you have been God ordained to impact along the way. And if you give up, they won't get it. So push past discouragement, push past disappointment, push past fear, push past feelings of inadequacy, push past anything that tries to stop you, and don't give up. But what if I fail? Hey, what if you don't? Don't give up. Don't give up. Just try. So, key number 1 to keep pushing forward is to be a better you. Key number 2, don't give up. And key number 3, celebrate others. I was happy to hear Korey say this because I wondered, I know we all deal with comparison, and I know it from a woman's point of view, but I was curious about how men deal with it. So I was glad to hear Korey's take on comparison and understanding his purpose and the role that God has for him to play, and just celebrating others who are doing other things. So I was glad to hear his perspective on that. To hear the details on that, you got to go back and listen to episode 5 if you haven't already. So we all have a unique purpose and a journey. We know that. We all have a unique purpose and journey. So we have to understand that our calling and what we're supposed to be doing, we have to understand that and be good with it. We're going to see other people sometimes doing things that we want to be doing. And we're going to see them doing it in the way that God blessed them to be able to do it. And you know what? We just got to sit back and say, all right, I see you, and congratulate our brothers and sisters. We have to celebrate each other. And I will admit, it can be hard. I thank God that I have matured to a place where now I can rejoice with them that rejoice, like it says in Romans 12:15. But let me tell you, there was a time where I couldn't stand to see people. Well, let me give you some context. Most of my friends are married. Most of my friends have families. Oh my goodness. 90% of my classmates have families. They have kids who have graduated from high school. They have kids who are going to college. They've started their families. I'm struggling to even to go on a good date. Just one. And so I'm seeing, social media, it always shows you the best, but hey, that's what social media is. But I'm seeing all this stuff happening, and I'm sitting here, I ain't got no family started. And I had to take a break from social media. It was making me feel so bad. But then I read a reading plan on the Bible app, which I loved, and it talked about being comfortable in where you are on your journey. And it talked about, it said, don't compare the middle of your story with the end of somebody else's journey. Don't compare the middle of your story to the end of somebody else's story. We're all on a different journey. So you maintain your focus. You keep your eyes on Jesus, and you just know that you're doing what God has ordained for you to do. He is ordering your steps, and he has a plan, and he's working everything out for your good. And so I was really encouraged when I read that reading plan, and I was checked too on my attitude. And so now, hey, I'm claps, hearts, love, everything. I'm happy for everybody. I'm celebrating everybody because everybody will have their day. And I like what Korey said. Korey said, celebrate your brothers and sisters. There are enough blessings to go around. There is enough for everybody. And I think BJ may have said something similar to that too. So check out my interview with her to get those details. I believe she was episode 3. Get those details. But we got to celebrate our brothers and sisters and realize once you're comfortable and you know that what God has for you is for you, then it shouldn't matter what other people have going on, because what God has for you is for you. And I had to grow into that place. I really did. I had to grow into that place. And so I hope that we all grow to that point, and a lot of us are. But even if you're struggling, I just pray that we all grow to that place where we can just celebrate our brothers and sisters, celebrate those who are thriving and doing well, and just realize that God has a unique plan and a purpose for our life. Celebrate, rejoice with those who rejoice. Rejoice with those who rejoice, because the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. So we have to believe. If we believe one scripture, then we have to believe the others. If the word Psalm 37:23 says that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way, and we believe that, then that means we believe that God is directing our steps so that we can fulfill the plans that he has for us. What he has for us is for us, and everything, our steps and our stops, are working together for our good. So celebrate others. That's what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate when we see our sister thriving. We're going to celebrate when we see our brothers thriving. We're going to celebrate. Claps, hearts, all that good stuff. Support, claps, heart, support for our brothers and sisters who are thriving. We are celebrating others because it's not going to take anything from us, because what God has for us is for us. So, in summary, the 3 keys to help you to keep pushing forward. Key number 1, be a better you. Key number 2, don't give up. And key number 3, celebrate others. So Korey shared a whole lot of good stuff, but I think those 3 things that he shared are really going to help us to keep pushing forward. And once we get those keys down pat and we apply those keys in our lives, it's going to lead us on a life of confidence. We're going to be confident in who we were created to be. We're going to be fulfilled. There will be fulfillment in our lives as we live out our callings, and our lives will be full of contentment. We will be some content people, just content in the seasons that we are in and celebrating our brothers and sisters. Korey's parting words were, I believe we all have a purpose, and God has big things in store for us. He wants us to stand out. We need to continue to push. We have to keep everybody inspired. We're on the same team. Let's serve. Let's do what we're called to do so we can make this world a better place. Keep pushing forward, guys, and live set apart.